Hey, lovely Soul Story family. Today we've got a heartwarming romantic tale just for you. So buckle in and let's begin. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss another magical moment. Chapter 1. The Meet Cute Mishap. Soup and Sneakers. Elena stood in her tiny kitchen, gazing into the mirror while cradling a hot bowl of chicken soup. Today she was determined to charm the neighbors. It had been 3 days since she'd moved into this old, crumbly building. Her first attempt at a welcome gift, cookies, had gone up in smoke, literally, but she ate them anyway. Now she was banking on her trusty chicken soup, the only thing she knew she couldn't mess up. Who could resist chicken soup, she whispered, patting down her tangled curls before stepping out with the bowl and a hopeful grin. Her target? House number 9, a gloomy green home next door that seemed to shun joy itself. Patchy lawn, always dark windows, and whispers of a reclusive man lived there, possibly the weirdest guy on the block. But Elena wasn't one to back down. She believed soup could thaw even the frostiest hearts. I'll be his sunshine, she told herself, stepping onto his porch in scuffed sneakers and faith. The porch was slick, leftover rain from last night maybe, but she didn't notice. She rang the bell, soup in hand like a sacred offering. No answer. She rang again, then knocked. Come on, she murmured. I'm not a food courier. Just then, disaster struck. Her foot slipped. Whoa, she yelped as she flailed. But the soup, it soared like a slow-mo scene in a drama, arcing gracefully before splattering spectacularly across the porch, her jeans and even her hair. Worse, one of her sneakers flew off and slammed into the glass beside the door. Crash. The glass held, but the sound was enough to turn heads on the block. She froze, a hot mess, barefoot, soup-covered, shoeless, stunned. Oh, no, no, no! The door yanked open. There he was, tall, disheveled, sleepy-eyed like he'd just lost a dream he liked, hair like a bird's nest, wearing gray sweats and an epic scowl. What did you just launch at my house? He demanded, glaring at the lone sneaker spinning on the porch. Elena blinked, forced to smile. Her inner voice screamed, Abort! Abort! Hi, I'm Elena. I live next door. I was trying to be neighborly. With soup. But now I guess I'm a soup-flinging vandal. She gestured at the chaos with a shrug. He stared. Bowl. Shoe. Her. I don't eat soup, he deadpanned, and I don't like neighbors. Kindly get lost. And then he started to close the door. Wait, she cried, catching herself on the frame, nearly slipping again. You don't have to eat it. I just came to say hello. She bent, grabbed her shoe, soup dripping from it. I swear it flew on its own. I'm super clumsy. You'll see. He turned slowly, arms crossed, voice like icicles. Did you just say you'll see? Are you planning to chuck a fridge at my door next? Elena laughed, loud, unbothered, even though nothing about this was okay. No way, I'm not that strong. But seriously, carrots, onion, pepper, it's great soup. Want to try a bite before kicking me out? She winked. I'm not hungry, he snapped, motioning toward the street. Leave, now. She sighed, not mad, just used to chaos. She pulled a sticky note and a stubby pen from her pocket, scribbled something, set it next to the soup puddle. If you change your mind, it's amazing soup. Don't say I didn't offer. She hopped off the porch, only to nearly wipe out again. Oof, she yelled, grabbing the fence for balance. She turned, grinning like a doof. Told you, clumsy. He didn't say a word, just stared as she hobbled away, one shoe in hand. Then slammed the door. But just before it closed, she could have sworn. Not quite anger, more like confused amusement. Back inside, she collapsed on her couch, looking at her soup-drenched curls in the mirror. What a way to meet the neighbor, she said, laughing till her sides hurt. Somewhere beyond the wall, in a shadowy kitchen, Nathan peered through the curtain at the porch mess. Broom in hand. What a disaster, he muttered. But when he saw the note, the corner of his mouth twitched, just a bit. Enough to make him wonder, was he losing it? Chapter 2. Clumsy Girl versus Broom. Guy 3 days since the great soup debacle. Ella Lena still hadn't given up, especially on grumpy old number 9. She was terminally optimistic, even if reality rarely matched her vibe. Case in point, the row of cacti she planted to create a green paradise. She forgot to water them. They shriveled into husks, or the stray cat she named Fluff. Fed it milk, made a towel bed. It left the next morning. Ants took over. My life's a sitcom, she said, chuckling as she surveyed the crispy cactus graveyard. This place wasn't exactly a slice of paradise. The homes were faded, the air thick with whispered gossip. But number 9? That's where the stories came from. Old Mrs. Martha from number 7 told her, eyes gleaming. He once yelled at an ice cream clown for singing, said, "Shut it or I'll bury that cone in your ear." Mr. Tom from 10 chimed in, "It was my kid's birthday." Funniest day of my life. Elena couldn't confirm any of it, but she imagined Nathan as a comic book villain. Grumpy, dramatic, weirdly hilarious. That morning, Elena marched outside wearing an oversized tee, straw hat, and a mini watering can she borrowed. As she watered her withered cacti, she sang, "Cacti don't die on me. I love you so much." From number 9 came furious muttering. She looked up. Nathan was in his yard, waving a long broom at the roof. "These birds are wrecking my house," he roared. "Go away, you flying rats!" Elena burst out laughing. Nathan spun, eyes like daggers. "What's funny?" he growled. "Nothing," she said, hands raised, barely hiding her grin. "It's just, you're chasing birds with a broom. Should I call animal control to cheer you up?" She set down her watering can, hands on her hips, teasing. "I thought you hated me, but turns out you hate birds more." Impressive multitasking. His glare was deadly. "You're too loud," he snapped. "These birds have pooped on my roof all week. You try living with that smell." He swung the broom again, thwacking a bird mid-flight. It screeched and vanished in a flurry of feathers. Elena cocked her head. "Okay, fair, but from here you kind of look like a cranky grandpa yelling at clouds." She grabbed the watering can again, splashed water all over her face. "Ah," she gasped, wiping herself with her sleeve. "See? We've both got problems. We're more alike than you think." "Not even close," Nathan said, flat as ever. He turned to leave, but she jogged to the fence, nearly tripping again. "Hey, wait. What's your name?" I'm Elena, a.k.a. Soup Girl. Don't I get a name back?" Nathan paused, looked back. "I don't need friends. I don't care who you are. Stay out of my yard." "Rude," she said, eyes twinkling. "Then I'll call you Broom Guy. Fits the vibe." She pointed at the broom and laughed again, louder this time. "Just kidding, but hey." She plucked a feather off the ground and held it up like a flag. "If you need help with bird patrol, I'm available. My singing's so bad, they'll flee on their own." He stared at her like she'd fallen from the sky. Then for a fleeting moment, a smile. Tiny. Barely there. "You're nuts," he mumbled, then slammed the door. Elena stood there, feather in hand. "Did he just laugh?" she whispered. Then she skipped back home, not even noticing her sun-baked cacti. She had a new mission. Inside number 9, Nathan had flung the broom onto the couch, dropped into a chair and muttered, "She's trouble." But this time the usual grumble in his voice had thinned into something softer. Not that he'd ever admit it. Meanwhile, across the yard, Elena sat slurping instant noodles, scribbling on a sticky note. "Broom Guy, I'll bring cookies next time. Don't chase me like the pigeons." She stuck it on her window facing number 9, grinning to herself. He couldn't read it from that far, but imagining him scowling when he noticed it made her giggle. "One day I'll make him laugh out loud," she said aloud, then promptly dumped noodles on her shirt and shrieked, "Oh no, not again." Chapter 3. The Soup War and the Troll Notes. After the flying soup disaster and that ridiculous broom-waving bird battle, Elena decided that Nathan, a.k.a. Broom Guy, was not escaping her friendly crusade. She wasn't one to quit, even if her culinary talents threatened global food safety standards. "He needs someone to brighten that storm cloud of a life," she said, standing in her kitchen, apron still dusted with flour from a failed muffin experiment. "Today's plan? Cookies, not soup." The memory of the shoe-throwing incident still haunted her. She peered down at the tray of cookies. They were roundish. Well, mostly charcoal black and lumpy. Still technically food? She tried, nibbling one, and instantly regretting it. Still, she boxed them up, scribbled, "These are a little dark but edible, I swear." Elena from number 8, and tiptoed to Nathan's door. Knock knock. She bolted away like she just ding-dong ditched. The next day, peeking through her curtains, she gasped. The box was gone. "He took it," she squealed, hands in the air like she'd won Olympic gold. She imagined him chewing, eyes wide in shock, secretly impressed. But later, while checking her mailbox, she found the box again, now empty, with a pencil-scrawled note. "You're a terrible cook. Stop trying. Classic Nathan, blunt." "No wasted ink," Elena burst out laughing. "He ate all of it and still complained?" She ran inside, grabbed a sticky note, and scribbled, "Oh, so you ate them all and still had the nerve to insult them? Shameless. Next time I'll do better." She taped it to the box and left it back on his doorstep, then retreated to watch from the shadows. But Nathan never appeared. Too embarrassed to reply, she guessed, already brainstorming her next gift. The following day, she made tea, cheap, bagged, and completely cold from being forgotten during a TikTok binge. Cold tea still works," she shrugged, poured it into a plastic cup, and added a lollipop for flair. Note, tea for grumpy people. Drink before I tell the block you're bullying me. She said it on his step, then ducked behind the fence to spy. 10 minutes later, Nathan emerged, broom in hand. Again, he eyed the tea and candy like they were ticking bombs. He picked up the note, skimmed it, sniffed the tea, and dumped it right onto the ground. "Hey," Elena shouted, jumping out. "What are you doing? I put my heart into that." Nathan whirled. "Are you spying on me?" he growled, holding the now empty cup. "It's ice cold. Were you trying to poison me?" "Poison? Please!" Elena marched forward, hands on hips. "It's cold because I was watching a movie, okay? But the intentions were hot, and you could have at least kept the lollipop." He glanced down at the lonely candy, sighed, then stuffed it into his pocket. "I don't eat things from strangers," he muttered and stormed back inside. She blinked, then cracked up. He kept the lollipop. That's progress. Victory in the troll war. Next came a cake, not burnt, but lopsided. She aimed for a smiley face. It resembled a roadkill frog. "Still," she wrote, "smile for once. Your face looks like the world owes you money." Elena, and left it with a plastic fork. Later, while watering her plants and accidentally splashing herself, there was a knock. She opened the door. Empty cake plate. Note, ugly cake, like you, but edible. She doubled over, laughing. "He's trolling me back." She ran for paper. "Ugly cake, and you ate it all. Who's shameless now? Wait for a pretty one next time." From then, the notes escalated. She left savory crackers. Not sweet. Perfect for someone who hates fun. Nathan replied, "You're louder than these crackers." She sent lemonade. "Drink this to sweeten up." He returned the empty cup. Still sour. Like you, each note made Elena laugh out loud. And though Nathan wouldn't admit it, he'd started waiting for the next weird gift. One day, standing in his kitchen, he looked at a leftover smiley frog cake and muttered, "She's insane." But he took a bite and smiled. Just a little. Elena didn't see it, but she felt it. "He doesn't hate me," she whispered, and then promptly dropped her newest lemonade on the floor. "Oh, come on, not again," Nathan heard her yell through the window. But instead of a groan, this time he chuckled. "I just knew he hated pigeons and my cooking. Oh, and I dropped his glasses down a drain." She recalled dragging him to safety, her voice a blend of concern and humor. The doctor gave a small smile. "You saved him. If you hadn't called 911 when you did, he might not have made it." Elena was led to the recovery room, where Nathan lay in bed, eyes shut, machines beeping beside him. She stood beside him, hands folded, unsure of what to say. After a while, Nathan's eyes fluttered open, locking onto her with a tired yet sharp gaze. "What are you doing here?" he asked, voice raspy. Elena jumped and then grinned. "I saved you. You fainted in the yard. I dragged you to the porch and called the ambulance." She scratched her head, blushing. "Oh, and I dropped your glasses down a drain. Sorry." Nathan frowned, looking at her like he couldn't believe it. "You dragged me?" he muttered. "I thought I got hit by a truck." "No truck." Elena waved her hands. "Just me." I yelled a lot. "Bet you heard me scream, 'Don't die in front of my house,' right?" She laughed, then stopped when he didn't join in. "Hey, you okay?" The doctor chimed in. You're a walking disaster." Nathan interrupted weakly, his voice still dripping with sarcasm. "I passed out and still heard you screaming. My head hurts worse because of you." He closed his eyes as if to sleep, but the corner of his mouth twitched, a familiar sign Elena had started to recognize. "Yeah, I'm clumsy," she admitted, sitting by his bed. "But I didn't know you were sick. I thought you really hated me." Her voice softened, losing its usual cheer for the first time. Nathan opened his eyes, staring at her for a long moment before sighing. "I don't hate you," he said so quietly that she almost missed it. "I just don't want anyone close." Elena blinked, then smiled faintly. "So you like my cookies, huh?" Nathan glared but didn't answer, turning his face away. She stood and patted his shoulder. "Rest up, broom guy. I'll go make you some tea. This time it'll be hot." She walked out, but her chest felt heavy. He didn't hate her, but he was dying, and she didn't know what to do with that truth. Elena froze for a moment, then doubled over in laughter. "Oh my God, you hit a pipe!" she exclaimed, her voice cracking with amusement. She scrambled through the mud to turn off the valve near the fence. But in the process, she slipped and tumbled headfirst into the puddle, completely drenched. Nathan, just as soaked, wiped his face and stared at her, a mix of irritation and resignation on his face. "You told me to dig," he snapped, his hair plastered to his forehead, looking like a drowned cat. Elena struggled to her feet, water dripping from her clothes, but she couldn't stop laughing. "You're a pro at digging graves. One scoop and boom, a geyser," she teased, clapping her hands, which sent even more water splashing onto him. Nathan glared at her, but then, to her surprise, he smirked and let out a short, clear laugh. "You're trouble," he muttered, tossing the shovel aside and standing there, dripping wet. Elena stopped laughing, her heart skipping a beat. "Did you just laugh?" she asked, her eyes lighting up. "Oh my God, I made you laugh." "I'm amazing." She reached to pat his shoulder, but slipped again, nearly falling. Nathan instinctively grabbed her arm to steady her, but quickly let go, turning away in embarrassment. "Don't get the wrong idea," he mumbled, though his tone lacked its usual edge. They both stood there, drenched, staring at the muddy mess and the broken pipe before bursting into laughter together. For the first time, they laughed at the same time, and Elena felt warmth spread through her chest despite the cold water soaking her shirt. A few days later, Elena decided to bring Nathan a tray of freshly baked chocolate cookies, this time not burnt, but sticky because she hadn't let them cool before stacking them. She knocked loudly on his door, shouting, "Come get your cookies!" "I made them awesome." Nathan opened the door, eyeing the tray skeptically. "You again," he muttered, but stepped onto the porch and sat when she tugged him down beside her. "Try one," she urged, shoving a cookie into his hand, but her clumsiness tipped the tray. "Oh no," she yelped as the cookies crashed onto Nathan, chocolate smearing across his shirt. She froze, hand over her mouth, then shouted louder, "Oh no, I just turned you into a giant cookie." She lunged to wipe him off with her sleeve, only to spread the mess further. Nathan sat still, a streak of chocolate on his face, staring at her in disbelief. "You're why I won't make it to next year," he mumbled, a mix of exhaustion and amusement in his voice. But then, to her surprise, he laughed, a loud, clear laugh that rang across the quiet porch. Elena gaped, then joined him, tears almost spilling from laughing so hard. "That's the first time you've laughed that loud," she cheered, clapping and splattering chocolate onto her own face. "Because you're an idiot," Nathan replied, wiping his face but still chuckling. He picked a cookie off his shirt, took a bite, and shrugged. "Edible. Too sticky, though." Elena plopped down beside him, grabbing another piece and eating it happily, despite her gooey hands. "See? I told you they're good," she boasted, though they both looked like they'd rolled through a bakery explosion. They sat there eating, wiping chocolate off themselves, and talking. Elena recounted the time she nearly burned down her house with birthday candles, and Nathan shared how he tried fixing a bike, but ended up snapping the front wheel. Silly stories and laughter filled the air, making everything between them feel lighter than ever. But as the sunset glowed, Elena caught a flicker of sadness in Nathan's eyes and couldn't help but ask, "Are you scared?" Nathan stopped laughing and stared out at the yard, his hand tightening around a sticky cookie. "Scared of what?" he asked quietly. "Of everything," Elena said, her voice softening. "Your illness, I know about it. I don't want you to be sad, but I don't know what to do." She looked down, fidgeting with a chocolate smear on her shirt, not smiling for once. Nathan was silent for a long time before turning to her. "I'm more scared of you than dying," he said evenly, with a hint of humor. Elena blinked, staring at him. "Scared of me?" she asked, then chuckled faintly. "Because I'm too clumsy?" Nathan nodded, smirking. "You make me laugh, and I don't want to laugh. I don't want to like you." He turned away, but Elena's heart pounded. She couldn't tell if he was serious or joking, but a quiet sadness crept in. Not for herself, but for him. He was trying to keep her at arm's length despite himself. "What's wrong with liking me?" she said gently. "I like you, too. You're grumpy, but your laugh's cute." She picked up the last cookie piece, handing it to him. "Eat this and stop being scared of me. I don't bite, I just drop stuff." She winked, trying to coax another smile out of him. Nathan took the cookie, staring at her for a moment before taking a bite. "You're a disaster," he muttered, but his eyes softened as if he'd let a piece of his wall crumble. They sat there in the fading light, laughing and aching, close yet distant, a slow, clumsy, but real kind of love. He sat in his dark room, hands trembling, as another coughing fit overtook him. "I deserve better," he muttered to himself, the words barely escaping his lips. On the second day, he peered out at the yard. No Elena, no dreadful singing, no new notes. Good, he thought, but something was missing. His chest felt hollow. He missed her, though he'd never admit it. On the third day, his coughing worsened, his chest aching more than before. He picked up her note again, reading, "Your face is ugly enough." The corner of his mouth twitched. He wanted to go to her, to apologize for pushing her away, but the courage just wasn't there. He grabbed his broom and stepped outside, pretending to shoo birds, but his real goal was to catch a glimpse of number 8. Through a gap in her curtains, he spotted a new note on her window. "I'm not gone yet, idiot. Are you okay, Elena?" His heart raced, and for the first time in 3 days, relief washed over him. Elena, peeking through the window, saw him standing there with his broom flailing. She laughed, dropping the glass she was holding and yelling, "Oh no, not again!" But Elena didn't care. She knew he hadn't given up, and neither had she. She understood his need to protect her by pushing her away, but she wasn't about to let him face it alone, whether he liked it or not. Chapter 4. The Fake Birthday. Laughter through tears. After 3 days of hiding in her house with stale cookies and comedy films, Elena decided enough was enough. She couldn't bear the thought of leaving Nathan alone in his silence, not after she'd seen him in the yard, swinging his broom like he wanted to communicate something through the motion. She knew he didn't want her close, but she also knew that deep down, he needed her, whether he'd admit it or not. "This time I'll make him laugh," she told herself, standing in her kitchen with a flower-streaked apron, preparing for her grandest plan yet, a fake birthday party. Elena had no clue when Nathan's real birthday was. He'd never told her, and she didn't dare ask. But she figured, if he doesn't have much time left, I'll give him a birthday now. She baked a big vanilla cake with white frosting, slightly lopsided from over-whipping the cream, and decorated it to resemble Nathan, complete with chocolate candy eyes and a red icing mouth. Across the top, she scribbled, "Happy birthday to the nutcase at number 9, in messy handwriting. She laughed at her creation, muttering, "Ugly but cute, just like him," before rushing off to invite the neighbors. She knocked on Mrs. Martha's door, Mr. Tom's, and a few others, shouting, "Party tonight at the park." "Surprise birthday for Nathan. Don't tell him." Mrs. Martha grinned. "I'll bring tea." Mr. Tom nodded. "I'll bring chairs." Elna even roped in the neighborhood kids, promising candy if they'd sing the birthday song. She gathered balloons, paper hats, and a small folding table, setting it all up in the park at the end of Elmwood Street. By evening, Elena stood at number nine's door wearing a daisy print t-shirt and a glittery paper hat. She pounded on the door, yelling, "Nathan, get out here! It's urgent." Nathan opened the door, his usual scowl in place, but his eyes flickered with surprise as he saw her standing there, hat askew. "What are you up to?" he grumbled. "Come with me." Elena beamed, grabbing his hand and yanking him outside before he could resist. "No questions, just come. I won't drop anything this time. Promise." Nathan tugged his hand back, but Elena pulled harder. He reluctantly shuffled after her, muttering, "You're such a pain." They reached the park, and as Nathan stepped past the trees, the whole neighborhood shouted, "Happy birthday!" Balloons floated in the air, kids ran around, and Mrs. Martha raised her teacup in a mock toast. In the center sat the cake. "Happy birthday to the nutcase at number 9. Glowing under flashlights Mr. Tom had brought. Nathan froze, jaw-dropping, staring at Elena with a mix of anger and disbelief. "What the hell is this?" he snapped, but his voice wavered, betraying his confusion. Elena shrugged, grinning wide. "A surprise party for you? I don't know when your real birthday is, so I'm celebrating early just in case you miss my cake." She dragged him to the table, plopping a paper hat on his head before he could protest. "Wear it. You look cute," she shouted, making the kids burst into giggles. Nathan glared, clutching the hat like he might throw it. "My birthday's next month," he said dryly, but his eyes scanned the crowd. Mrs. Martha, Mr. Tom, the kids, then landed on the ugly cake. Elena shouted, chasing the cat, but she tripped over a chair, crashing down and pulling Nathan, who had been trying to catch it, along with her. They landed in a heap, tangled in paper towels while Broom sat smugly on the fridge, observing them with what seemed like a victorious glare. "Did you adopt a cat or a monster?" Nathan grumbled, though his loud laugh echoed through the chaotic kitchen. Elena, covered in cookie crumbs and laughing too, managed to say, "You're grumpy but adorable." They cleaned up the mess, scolding Broom between fits of laughter, and for the first time, Nathan didn't feel worn out, despite the ache in his chest. The days that followed were filled with more silly chaos. They tried fixing the faucet that Elena had once broken, but Nathan turned the wrong valve, flooding the yard. They replanted daisies, only for Elena to forget to water them, while Nathan dug too deep, turning the flower bed into a pit. But they didn't mind. They laughed, they bickered, and they stayed together. One evening, they sat on Nathan's porch with Broom curled between them. For the first time, they talked about deeper things. Nathan gazed at the yard, his voice quiet. "I've had heart failure since I was 20. The doctor said I could get a transplant, but I didn't want it. I saw my mom die during hers, and I didn't want that." He paused, gripping the edge of his chair. "I figured living short but free was better than dragging it out in misery." Elena listened quietly, her hand on his, steady and gentle. "I'm not great at comforting," she said softly, "but I get it. You chose your way, and I don't blame you." She looked at him, her eyes bright despite the ache in her chest. "But you have to let me stay, okay? I don't want you to be alone." Nathan turned to her, staring for a long time. "Don't you get tired?" he asked. "I'm grumpy. I'm sick. I can't give you anything." Elena smiled faintly, shaking her head. "I used to think love had to be perfect," she said warmly. "My parents split when I was little, and I watched them fight all the time. I was scared of love. But then I grew up. I burnt cookies, I spilled stuff, and I realized that life doesn't have to be perfect. It's like burning a cake, but still enjoying it." She winked, trying to make him smile. "You're my burnt cake." Nathan let out a raspy, genuine laugh. "You've burnt my whole life," he said, his hand brushing hers lightly. "But I don't hate it." He looked at her, his eyes softer than they had ever been. "Thanks for staying. I don't want you to go." Elena laughed loudly, nearly dropping her glass, but this time she caught it. "See? I'm improving," she cheered, leaning her head on his shoulder, steady and sure. "I don't want to go either. You're the first person who's made me feel truly happy." They sat there under the moonlight, Broom yawning between them. Nathan's final days passed like that, imperfect and fleeting, but filled with laughter. One day they tried baking together, but Elena swapped salt for sugar, and Nathan winced after a bite. Trying to poison me? He asked, but she just laughed. No, just making sure you remember me. He glared but ate the salty slice anyway, muttering, good, in your weird way. On his last day, Nathan was weaker, but he still sat on the porch with her, watching Broom chase pigeons. You're the biggest trouble I've ever had, he said faintly. Elena smiled, holding his hand. And you're my favorite trouble, she replied. They didn't say more. They just sat there, happy until the very end, as if time couldn't steal what they'd shared. Chapter 5. Laughter and Memory. Nathan's final days were filled with warm, silly moments that Elena would never forget. They painted his house the wrong color, adopted a cat that wreaked havoc in the kitchen, and laughed as if time wasn't their enemy. But one quiet afternoon, as Nathan sat on the porch, coughing and holding a glass of water, Elena couldn't hold back her question. Are you crazy? She asked, half joking, half serious. You're grumpy with everyone, chased me off a dozen times, and now you let me stick around, bothering you. Are you actually crazy? Nathan turned to her, his tired eyes flickering with surprise. He smirked, a rare smile that she adored. Maybe I am, he rasped, but not because I hate you. I'm just tired. He didn't explain further, but Elena could feel the weight in his words. He wasn't grumpy. He was exhausted in a way he had kept hidden. She laughed loudly, patting his shoulder. Crazy or not, just don't kick me out again. He shook his head, muttering, You're the crazy one. But his gaze softened, as if her question had touched a deep corner of his heart. Elena didn't know that question would be his last gift to her. One early morning, as sunlight streamed through the curtains, she knocked on his door, holding a bowl of chicken soup she had made with extra care. No spills this time, she shouted. Nathan, come eat soup. I nailed it. But there was no answer. She opened the door and found him on the couch, peaceful as if asleep, his hand resting on his chest. Beside him was a yellow sticky note with his handwriting. Elena froze as she read it. Thanks for asking if I'm crazy. Funny thing is, I'm not crazy, just tired. Nathan. She sat beside him, clutching the soup, tears streaming down her face as she smiled. You idiot, she whispered. I brought soup, and you won't even eat it. She set the bowl on the table, brushing his messy hair aside, his bird's nest as she always teased, and whispered, I didn't spill it this time. Wake up and eat. But he didn't stir. She knew he would never taste her soup. She wiped her eyes, forcing a grin. Your face really is ugly, but I miss you already. Nathan left quietly, as he had wanted. No hospital, no machines. Just his little house with Broom curled in the corner. Elena called the ambulance, standing in the yard as they took him away, clutching his note. She didn't stay sad for long. She wasn't good at sadness. Instead, she resolved to turn her longing into something joyful, silly, and worth living for, just as Nathan had laughed with her. A month later, Elena opened a small shop on the corner of Elmwood Street, near the park where they'd held the fake birthday party. She called it Grumpy Soup Corner, a funny, warm tribute to Nathan and that first spilled soup he never got to try. The shop was painted a blazing orange, the color they'd laughed about, and had a wooden sign that read, Good soup, but don't throw it at anyone. She had written it herself, messy, just like their old notes. Every time she saw it, she laughed, picturing Nathan glaring. You spilled it all, and now you're opening a shop, she imagined him saying. The shop sold soup, the dish Nathan never tasted, but Elena was determined to perfect it, to make up for that first failed batch. She learned to cook properly, though she still burnt pots or mixed up spices sometimes. Her first customer was Mrs. Martha, sipping chicken soup and saying, Better than the batch you dumped at Nathan's door. Mr. Tom brought a chair to sit and retold Nathan's ice cream clown chase, sending the shop into hysterics. Elena stood behind the counter, wearing a glittery paper hat, serving soup and telling stories about dropping cookies on Nathan or him hitting the water pipe. He never ate my soup, she would say, grinning, but I bet he'd call it awful and finish it anyway. She kept the stray cat Nathan once hated, the gray one he'd called a furry pest. She renamed it Nath, not Broom this time, wanting a piece of him with her. Nath slept on the counter, occasionally knocking over customers' water, prompting Elena's familiar cry. "Oh no, not again. He's just like him," she would mutter, stroking Nath. "Grumpy but lovable." One day, Nath spilled a bowl of soup she had just ladled. She laughed. "See? Nathan sent him to troll me." A year after Nathan's passing, Elena sat in the shop on a quiet evening, gazing at the park through the window. The place had grown busy, not just for the soup, but for her stories, told with clumsy, honest cheer. She hung Nathan's last note on the wall, beside the sign, a reminder. Customers would ask about it, and she'd smile. "It's from the first guy I asked, 'Are you crazy?' He called me dumb, but he stayed." She didn't tell them the full story, his illness, the soup he never ate. She wanted them to remember Nathan as she did, a lovable nutcase, not a tragedy. Elena kept living, just as she always had, optimistic, klutzy, and full of laughter. She still dropped things, sang off-key, planted flowers, and forgot to water them. But each time she glanced at Nath or at the note on the wall, she felt Nathan somewhere muttering, "You're a disaster." She didn't linger in sadness. He wouldn't have wanted that. "He was just tired," she'd tell herself, "but he was happy with me." One day she stood outside the shop, watching the neighborhood kids play in the park. She remembered the fake birthday, Nathan's laugh, and smiled. She wrote a new note and stuck it on the shop door. "Ask someone today, 'Are you crazy?' Because you might be the only one brave enough to ask." It was what she had learned from Nathan. A silly question could change a life. Elena didn't look for another Nathan. He was one of a kind, with his grumpiness and rare smiles. She kept going, running the shop, tending Nath, burning cookies like an unbreakable habit. Her life wasn't perfect, but it was good, like the soup he never tasted, like the memory of a nutcase who laughed because of her. And every time she laughed, she knew Nathan, somewhere, was smirking and muttering, "You're such an idiot." The story ends. But love doesn't need perfection, just truth, like a burnt cake that still tastes sweet. Ask, "Are you okay?" Because one question can shift everything. Laugh more, even through tears, because joy fights loss. Live each moment. Don't wait for forever. Time doesn't promise it. Beautiful memories are treasures eternal. Like Nathan's note to Elena, life's worth living when we dare to be clumsy, to love, to laugh. Elena carries on, with soup, Nath, and her smile, reminding us happiness lies in the small, real things. Thank you for following this heartfelt story of Soul Stories channel. Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you believe true love can withstand all trials and sometimes begins in the simplest of ways, don't forget to hit the like button and share this story with your friends. To never miss out on touching and meaningful stories, subscribe to our channel and help spread messages of love and warmth to everyone.